Hi, welcome to The Walking Dead, episode 102, Guts. I am Michelle MacLaren, the director.
I'm Greg Nicotero, special effects, makeup designer, and second unit director.
This opening shot we did with a crane where we're high above looking out over the quarry. We came down, had a steady cam on the crane, stepped off, and walked along and following the red bucket. And it was tricky because we split this day with the pilot in the camp and basically had about 4 hours of daylight to get this shot. And I have never been so impressed with a grip and camera crew on their first day to come in and execute a shot so perfectly. And David Boyd, the DP, and I looked at each other after we did it, and we said, that worked way too fast and way too well for a first day, so it was great.
Sweetheart, I want you to stay where Dale can see you, okay?
Yes, Mom.
You too. Don't wander too far. Stay within shouting distance. And if you see anything, holler. I'll come running.
Yes, Mom.
Sarah Wayne Callies, who plays Laurie here, she goes off to collect mushrooms, and we wanted to create a really scary, creepy feel here. We're on a dolly track through the woods. Interestingly enough, this isn't actually the camp that you just saw that they just came from. This is behind the stages in Atlanta. A little bit of forest back there, so it's a bit of a cheat. And I wanted to create the feeling that she was being followed by zombies or something bad. So we had lots of little pieces here. We did the dolly track. We did it with Steadicam. We did some handheld, as you're going to see coming up.
One of the things that impressed me the most when we did this episode is right after the pilot. You know, we had 14 days to shoot the pilot, and then, Michelle, you came in and had 8 days to shoot the introduction of every one of these characters. I mean, in the pilot, you really spend most of the time with Rick, but it sort of fell into your lap to introduce all of these other characters and sort of let them sort of play out the beginning of their relationship with each other. I thought that was amazing. And the handoff between David Tattersall, who was the DP on the pilot, to David Boyd, like you were saying about one sequence intercutting with another, but by two different DPs and two different directors at some point.
It's true. We had David Tattersall did the pilot, and David Boyd did the first episode, and David Boyd's fantastic. He is amazingly talented DP here.
Scared the hell out of me.
I bet it's what you give to keep me waiting. I was trying to be quiet. Where you been?
Amy, the Mushroom Queen. I had to wait for her to get back.
Introducing the characters, you're right, Greg. It was a fun challenge, amazing cast, lots of really talented and fun people to work with, and it was a very enjoyable experience. But it is interesting to introduce a cast for a new series. However, of course, this is based on Robert Kirkman's comic books, and so I did, of course, read all the comic books, and I did have some history and some knowledge of where most of these characters were coming from and the world that they were coming from.
I think this is the only love scene in the whole first season, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, it's. I got teased a little bit about that moment you just saw there, about him flipping her over. But what we wanted to do was create the idea that this was hot, hungry, desperate sex. That these were two people that, in this horrible situation, found each other to find comfort. And it's very, very passionate. In a later episode, when Laurie is reunited with her husband, they have very loving yet familiar, knowing sex. And so we wanted to make a contrast between these two couples, between Shane and Laurie and Laurie and her husband. And so we had a little fun there, went a little wild, shook it up a little bit.
When we shot the show, we actually were on a split week. So our days off were Thursdays and Fridays because we had to have downtown Atlanta sort of empty to shoot these big crowd scenes. So in these sequences, we had 150 people in various stages of prosthetics, background masks. The tank here was actually on our stage in Atlanta.
You all
alive in there?
Hello? Hello?
There you are. You had me wondering.
Where are you? Outside? Can you see me right now?
Yeah, I can see you. You're surrounded by walkers. That's the bad news.
How many makeup people did you have working for you that day? Because there was 200 zombies in full zombie makeup. Is that right?
Yeah, we had 12 people. I mean, ironically, it was not as many as you would think. The idea is that it becomes an assembly line. We get there at 3 o'clock in the morning and literally just start running people through the makeup trailer. And then as they come out, they get fed to set. So by 7 a.m., half the makeup crew goes to set. And, I try to make it a point to stay close to the directors so that I can make sure that when they have questions about how we want to block something or which zombies are the featured and which ones are background, I'm always close and available. This sequence especially, I remember, Michelle, that we talked about when he pops out of the tank and has the run down the street. We had originally talked about doing that with all practical blood head hits and how we were going to hide tubing and how we were going to hide people to do the blood rigs on the heads. And then it just became one of those realities where the way you wanted to shoot it is the camera just barrels with him as he runs down the street. And then visual effects would go in and augment with blood spray here so that you would actually be able to catch the gag. As you pan over to a zombie, his head explodes. Pan over to another zombie, their head explodes and they drop. So it's something we definitely couldn't do years ago, and now it's a great tool.
Hey, what's your name?
Have you been listening? You're running out of time.
Right here, coming up, this guy right here, when he gets hit by the shovel. This was going to be a 40-minute makeup, and of course, the time and everything, we had about 20 minutes to do it, and I remember I turned to Greg, I said, Greg, I don't have 40 minutes, I've got 20 minutes. You did the most incredible makeup job right there on the set. It was really impressive. But this, I wanted to keep the camera moving. I wanted us to be with Rick in his head and experience the tension and the drama here, and they're running for their lives. And so, like you said, we wanted to keep everything moving, and so we did a lot of this with a combination of special effects makeup practically and then the CG for the actual hits. This shot coming up here, this one right here, we actually stuck a HD camera on the end of a long pole, and this was a David Boyd special here, and hung it down those stairs and just kind of shook it around at the people. I think we were on a lift for this one here.
Nice moves there, Clint Eastwood. You the new sheriff? Come riding in to clean up the town?
Wasn't my intention.
Yeah, whatever. Yeehaw. You're still a dumbass.
This was our introduction to Stephen Yeun.
Glenn, you're welcome. Oh, no. Right side, it'll be the fall that kills us. I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
You the one barricaded the alley?
Somebody did.
The pace that we had to shoot all of this was really, really fast, and the camera crew was great. We were running all the time, a lot of handheld.
Bet if I'm ever that far up Shit Creek, somebody might do the same for me. Guess I'm an even bigger dumbass than you. I'm back. Got a guess. Plus 4 geeks in the alley.
This is all handheld here. These are all Greg's specialty here with the blood and the zombies and thanks to the wonderful sound effects department, we've got some really gushy stuff happening. And now we're introducing the rest of the group here. And as you can see, each one of them, when they rip off their hats or their protective gear and everything, I shot it in a way that I wanted them to each have a little bit of an introduction. So Laurie Holden, who's Andrea, she grabs him and throws him against her with the gun. And when Irony comes in, T-Dog, he whips off the uniform that he's wearing. Same with Juan. And so everybody has kind of a nice little dramatic entry into the series. Frank wrote a great script because you learn so much about their characters and just how they're reacting to this horrible situation that they're in, and they are also individual in how they deal with everything and how they deal with each other.
Up the street like it's the old kick around. Every geek for miles around heard you popping off rounds.
You just rang the dinner bell.
Get the picture now?
Greg, you guys did a brilliant thing with the alpha zombies, beta zombies, and Charlie zombies, and you made it so easy to deal with because the alpha zombies had the full makeup, and you and I would talk and say, okay, we need 20 alpha zombies. In the next row back, because they're deep, it can be beta zombies, which take less time to make up, and then, of course, the Charlie zombies. I'm sure, Greg, you've talked about this on the zombie reel, but you could probably elaborate on that.
Well, I always thought that the sequence in the department store was an homage to the original Dawn of the Dead. When you see a bunch of zombies scrambling and clawing against the glass, that was definitely something that we were really excited about, exploring the idea that it's a great visual, in terms of the zombies and breaking into the department store. Even the sequence where Michael Rooker's on the roof and he's sort of picking off these zombies one at a time, just, introduces him as this creepy, weird, sadistic guy.
It does. And one of the things that when I read this is, I said to Frank, look, I want to put this guy up on the edge of the roof because we find out later he's probably high on cocaine, but we really want to realize that this guy is just off. He's a lunatic. He's off the wall. So what we did is actually we built a roof piece, the edge of the roof there, and we put it in front of the actual edge of the roof. And so when Michael was standing there, it looked like he was standing on the edge, but he was actually standing on a set piece. And I think it just made him look even that much more crazy. He did an amazing, amazing job of playing Merle Dixon. I certainly wouldn't want to run into him in a dark alley.
I'll tell you the day, Mr. Yo. It's the day I take orders from a nigger.
This is all actor action. These guys, we didn't use any stunt doubles or anything here. We met the day before. We talked about how we wanted to do it. I had them wrap a soft piece of padding on that pipe for T-Dog to hit his head on. We rehearsed the day before, and we came in. We had one day to shoot all this stuff up on all the fight and everything up on the roof. It was unbelievably hot. These actors were amazing.
It's funny, we talk a lot about the heat in Atlanta. I think this particular location, because we were on a rooftop that had been tarred and had that light color gravel and stuff on it. Subsequent pickup of this, when we were shooting Michael Rooker with the chopped off hand, we had poured some blood on the roof or on the top of the set there, and within 15 minutes the blood had cooked onto the set and turned into hard candy. It was literally that hot out.
Who's in charge? I vote me. Anybody else? Huh? Democracy time, y'all.
I love these extreme angles on this show. One of the really fun things about making The Walking Dead is it comes from a graphic novel. And so we would take the camera and I'd sometimes say, you know what, you guys, lower it, go wider. This is a graphic novel. We get to have some fun with it and in telling, as long as it's always telling the story, but always trying to keep that graphic novel element in mind when we're doing it.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Who the hell are you, man?
Officer Friendly.
We get a really insight to Rick's character here.
Well, I'll tell you, watching the cast work was so fantastic. I loved Andy Lincoln and John Bernthal and Sarah. Everybody. It was really a treat to watch these guys come together as an ensemble cast. And it was one of the things that I had talked to Frank about, because after we shot the pilot and we were shooting this episode, Frank went back to L.A. to start cutting his episode together. And at one point, after a couple episodes, while he was rewriting scripts and getting everything fine-tuned, I said, dude, you got to come back and see these guys work together. He had written all these great characters, but had never actually seen them worked together as an ensemble. So just everybody complemented each other so well. I thought it was amazing.
They did, and I believe, if I remember correctly, this was their first day. This was shooting up on this roof is when everybody was working together for the first time, this group of people. And so this is us, establishing these characters. And when we were doing it, we were having to keep in mind, the individuality of each character and how they would respond in this situation and who they are and where their characters are going and what's their relationship to one another. And, these guys jumped in with 2 feet and we went for it. I mean, these were long, crazy, well, not that long, but crazy days, because we lose the light at a certain point, crazy hot days in Atlanta. And you're right, Greg, they all came together beautifully and they worked together as a team very well.
Up the road a ways.
Well, Officer Friendly, from up the road a ways. Welcome to the big city.
Well, this shot in particular was a really tricky visual effects shot. A lot of people don't realize that it looks like a really simple, you just tilt down and you see all these zombies all over the street. But we spent probably a day up there with a second camera just shooting plates and insert pieces so that we could then get that visual effect shot of the camera sort of going out and tilting down and adding crashed up cars and adding zombies deep in the background.
Well, and also that's a different location, too. What you see over the roof doesn't exist. So you shot that plate at an actual different location. What's over that roof is a completely different street. And what happened in prep was it was written in the script that they were going to go and break into a car dealership and steal a car. And that's how they're going to rescue everybody and how they're going to get out of there. And they had, of course, walked down the street through the zombies to get to it. And we were up on this roof, a different roof than this, the one where Greg shot the plates at. And I looked over, and there was a construction site. And I thought, wait a minute, what if instead of a car dealership, they're going to steal a truck from a construction site? Because it had this great view down this street. And it was at the end of the street that we were actually going to be shooting all this footage of them walking down the street, trying to get to a car and trying to get to safety. So the visual effects guys did an amazing job of marrying these two elements. So Greg did a great job of shooting the plates at a different location and then married it to our shots here with, of course, the help of the visual effects guys. And you'd never know that if you really looked over that edge of this building where we are right now, it's a completely different location.
Right.
And this location, I believe, Greg, Frank found when he was scouting for the pilot and wrote to it, because it's very cool that this actual underground tunnel existed.
I remember that they had come back from this scout and he had written this, and it was just one of those things where, again, when you're going through and you're blocking everything out, you start thinking about how we're going to make our days and which pieces need to come and go. And at one point somebody said, if we have to, we could lose that scene where they go down in the tunnel. And then it was like, nah, it's a good creepy scene to get you into a little dark, eerie, moody area with rats, which I know you love.
I can't stand rats. I'm going to reveal a secret about myself. I have a major rat phobia. And, of course, we wanted real rats, which are coming up. So we were shooting with the rats, and I had to stand on an apple box, which is, for people who don't know, it's a grip box, and it's about a foot high off the ground. And I would stand on it because I figured if I was standing on the apple box, then the rats couldn't touch me, and they were running around on the floor. And I was standing there and directing, and we're shooting the scene, and I looked across, and the stills photographer was looking at me and looking at the floor and looking back up at me, and all I could think of was, oh my God, he's looking at a rat at my feet. And I started to scream, and everybody looked at me, and of course he wasn't looking at a rat at my feet, he was looking at the apple box I was standing on. It was a rather embarrassing moment. But we got through it, and the rats were great, as you're about to see.
We did. We made a fake rat as well.
Oh yes,
for this
you brat!
Quick shot of the zombie eating the rat, and I remember you specifically telling me that you weren't tremendously fond of it. So I think I came up to you in the craft service tent, like I approached you from 20 feet away and said, "Michelle, I'm walking towards you slowly because I have this that I want to show to you for approval." And you, I don't think you would come within 10 feet of me.
I think I actually still leaked. Yes, here's the rat. These are the real deal. Oh, and the rat wrangler. She was kissing and patting the rats like it was a puppy dog. Oh, it was disgusting. But the rats did a great job.
rat acting.
Rat acting.
We could have made giant rat costumes for actors to wear, but I think that would have been too hot. Here we are back in the department store.
And this was actually a closed down bank, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was an empty bank, and the art department did a wonderful job, led by Greg Melton, came in and decorated this as a department store that had been somewhat ransacked. You can see that the sale signs and stuff in the back, that's covering things that we couldn't see, and also adding to the set decoration of it all, of course.
And this was all off of our main street. I mean, we had one street that they kind of bought for the week of the shoot, and this store was right on that street. So we were shooting on that street right out where the zombies are, was our main drag, where Glenn drives the car and where they go walking down the street with the guts draping off of them. So we spent a lot of time sort of in this general vicinity. Laurie Holden, who's amazing. I've known her since when we did the Majestic, and she's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, she did a great job. The other tricky thing about that department store was all that glass.
Yeah.
And the zombies were banging on the glass, and we had different levels of breakage on the glass. So they at first it was clean, then they were breaking it and it started to crack, and then eventually they crack through it. And there's two doors, separate doors that they go through. And that's a tricky thing to shoot, because you think about take one, take two, and we have to match the different levels of glass, which means that quite often we only have one take that we got on each layer of the glass. And so we actually had to block shoot that and make sure that each stage of shooting those doors was shot, of course, in the right order and was shot at the same time but used for different scenes.
Plus, we had stunt guys in zombie makeups in the foreground so that nobody would get cut or hurt.
Yeah, that's
right.
Anytime
you have a crowd of zombies, especially when we shot the pilot and they were eating the horse, it was literally a feeding frenzy. Those extras in makeup were so excited to tear that horse to pieces that I ran over to Frank and said, "You better start rolling before they rip that fake horse apart for real." So you get all those zombies lined up against that glass, and they start pawing on it and clawing at it.
It's a frenzy. And they were fantastic extras. They were so dedicated and so motivated and so enthusiastic. But you're absolutely right, Greg. We had to protect them from themselves almost, which we did with the stuntmen.
Yeah, we got ourselves a sewer tunnel. Jackie was right.
Can we cut through it?
We have a Greg Nicotero special coming up. This is really gross.
I think Andy Schoenberg and Jake Garber did this makeup. I had a couple guys from LA with me: Andy Schoenberg, Jake Garber, Kevin Waz,
the rat.
Garrett Immel. Hey, look, fake rat. For us, one of the biggest challenges was, Frank and I always talk about the holy grail of zombie movies, which is the original Night of the Living Dead. And, he and I had always talked about, wow, wouldn't it be great to do a zombie project? We just got to find the right through line and the right story. Then he came upon The Walking Dead. So Frank and I share a very unique language in terms of growing up watching the same diet of George Romero movies, John Carpenter movies, Spielberg movies. We all loved the same kind of stuff. I think what was really exciting for me was getting to work with director like Michelle, who came in from a completely different perspective. She hadn't grown up watching Dawn of the Dead and wasn't necessarily a big horror person like Frank and I were. So being able to really educate each other about how to best do this stuff on an 8-day shoot between you and Gwyneth and Guy, because you guys came in and brought such life to the characters, and then then we had to sort of throw in, and then we need a gag here, a gag there, we got to shoot this guy,
It's an interesting point, because the tricky thing is to treat this as very realistic in a fantastical world. It's post-apocalyptic, and it's what I love about it is the idea of what would people do if they woke up one day and their lives were turned upside down like this. What if you woke up one day and zombies had taken over the world? How would you deal with it? And so it's a fascinating character study. And for me, that was really interesting, and one of the reasons I loved doing The Walking Dead. And then on the whole other side of thing, you've got this great world that has zombies and completely different rules as we know it. And you're creating this world of what if? What if this happens? And how would people react?
Bad ideas were an Olympic event. This would take the gold.
He's right. Just stop, okay? Take some time to think this through.
How much time? They already got through one set of doors. That glass won't hold forever.
This sequence coming up where they chop the zombie into pieces, Stephen King said it was one of the greatest moments in television of 2010. And I'll let you talk mostly about it, but this was the last scene that you shot when you were directing your episode.
It was a very, very long day, and we had very little time to shoot this sequence. And they came up to me and they said, Michelle, we only have one white coat for each person, except we have two for Rick and Glenn. So it all of a sudden became a mathematical equation of how do we shoot these people chopping up a body and not get blood on them for all the different coverage until the point that we want to have blood on them. And also, more importantly, how do we shoot this in a realistic manner that we truly believe that these people are actually doing this, because they're about to do one of the most grotesque things you could possibly imagine doing to another human being. And it occurred to me that it's so much of it is about the emotions that each individual is going through. What would you be thinking at this point? And I love the way Frank wrote this about the Rick is about to chop this guy up, and he stops and checks in his wallet and checks for his ID, and you can see on each of their faces that they're thinking, this could have been me. This could have just as easily been any one of them.
Yeah.
And they know that they have to do this to survive. It's like the soccer movie about the people having to eat the dead bodies. I mean, this is a horrible, horrible thing that most of us could never actually possibly imagine doing. And that's what we wanted to show here.
One more thing. He's an organ donor.
And the fact that you were able to juxtapose it with, they humanize it, and then right at the moment when you're taking in the fact that it's a real person, then you go in for the chop. So it's so jarring. I mean, just from conceptually, and when we brought this dummy in, it was 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we had to just anchor everything to the ground. And we're like, okay, Andy, so you chop here first, and then chop here and chop here, and.
Well, and what's amazing about that, Greg, is that once you've done take one, you've chopped the hand off. You can't really chop it off again, but we needed to. So Greg ran in there, and he kind of stuck the hand back on and did a quick fix-it job. And if you really went frame by frame in this, I think you'd probably see a couple of things that are, a little bit of a cheat here, but you put it all together, and you guys worked miracles, because we had very little time. I was amazed that actually some of the stuff was able to stay in it, because it's very, very graphic. But like you said, Greg, it really, just when you're getting very emotional and drawn into it, and it's heartbreaking for these people, and then, karate chop. It's like, yeah, the horror of it all, comes to reality. And that's a zombie film,
Well, and then it goes back. And then it goes from this grotesque moment to this heartfelt, Andy's line of, we're going to need more guts, and he goes back in.
Yeah.
The intensity on his face, God, it was so amazing. And I have some really funny pictures when we were exploring the idea of how to make the guts, and it was a mixture of Vaseline and hot glue and silicone and ultra ice and tints and all this different stuff. I have pictures of me wearing the jacket, standing out in the parking lot of the makeup trailer, modeling the jacket. Like, here is the most recent in zombie guts,
which was great and was such a huge help. And the other thing is too is in a situation like this, you want it to be visceral. You want the audience to smell it with them, and feel it. And I think that these guys do a really good job of this.
If we make it back, be ready.
What about Merle Dixon?
When I read a script, there's certain visual elements that pop into my head immediately because you're inspired by the writing, which this show very much was on in many areas. But coming up, when these guys first walk out of here with the guts around them, this shot right here, I read this, I immediately knew I wanted to do this shot with the feet and the hands, over them as they walk out of the alley. And I went to Greg and talked to him about this. And you remember this, Greg? It was one of the earlier things that we did. And you guys built these feet and hands specifically for that shot, which I love.
I always love this shot under the bus.
Yeah, this is the bus that is blocking the alley. And talk about troopers. These guys are covered in gross, disgusting goo, and they're going to get on their hands and knees and crawl on the dirty ground. Everything sticks to them. I mean, I can't imagine how gooey and icky these guys felt.
And it soaked through pretty quickly. I mean, and then let's not forget, on take 2, after they would crawl under the bus, half the stuff would wipe off on the ground.
Yeah.
So we had to go and with buckets of this gory concoction and redress everything for take 2, take 3, take 4. I mean, we went through probably 15 gallons of gore for this sequence because you can see now when they're crawling, they're literally wiping everything off on the ground. So we had to keep it consistent.
And not to mention, Greg, you guys are amazing. I don't know how you did this, but not to mention the heat again. And I thought, how is this makeup not going to melt off? I still don't know how all your makeup didn't melt off. We never, ever had an issue with melting makeup. Your whole team was just on it all the time. It was amazing. And the success of this show is such a huge, gigantic part to you and your team. Otherwise, it wouldn't have worked.
Well, thank you.
Hey, what's happening, man?
Michael Rooker, what an amazing actor this guy is. I said to Michael, you really have to go for it with this character. And although for Michael Rooker to unleash it's not that difficult, the guy is very dedicated to his craft, and he's so unbelievably good at it.
Well, one of the other amazing challenges that we have that's coming up, which we'll talk about, is the fact that it's a beautiful blue sky, and then 5 minutes from now it's supposed to be pouring rain.
Yeah.
And wash everything off, and then by the end of that, it's got to dry up so that they can drive away.
We're going to find a replacement.
It's late. They should have been back by now.
This is just for everybody who understands how fast we have to shoot television. That shot, we were running out of light, and I had 2 seconds to shoot that shot with Amy and that dialogue in that moment with them there, and so that's why I just had her pacing in front of these two guys, and I think it worked out pretty nicely. This is all part of that day where we had about 4 hours to shoot all this stuff, and again, it was the first day, I believe. Greg, was this the first day for all these guys too?
I think it was actually because
of course not John. No, because John was in the pilot.
But
just at the camp and everything.
Yeah, because we were on stage shooting the interior of the tank while you were shooting this, and then you guys switched because then Frank went to this location and you came and shot on stage.
Shane, is that you?
Is that them?
This quarry.
This is an amazing location.
It was great. I was just thinking that.
I mean, I couldn't believe that it actually existed there. It's this beautiful blue quarry, beautiful woods, and the Atlanta skyline is in the distance, which is fantastic.
Here's Emma.
Chandler, the little kid there who plays Carl, you have a time limit with children. And so we lost Carl because he was shooting on the pilot part of the day and then came over to us, and then our time was up with him. So he suddenly disappears, but it's blocked in a way that you don't miss him. It's blocked in a specific way so that we don't miss Carl. So it's a little bit of trickery that's coming up.
So we just have to deal with that.
It's really sad. Every time I look at Emma, if you're a fan of the graphic novel, eventually she's going to get it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when. And I just remember even just talking with her after we shot the episode 4 and episode 5. She was like, well, maybe there'll be a flashback scene in the next season where you'll see Amy and Andrea's backstory. But, the thing I love about Frank is that he has this ensemble group of people that he loves to work with. Laurie's there, Jeff DeMunn is there. Greg Melton, myself, Stargate. Alex, the art director. It's really a tribute to Frank.
It's fun. This is a fun thing that we did. I again, it's one of those scenes when I read the script, I wanted to shoot with a very, very, very long lens. I'm way down at the other end of the street, and have like a heat, see the heat coming off the street, and having these guys walk towards us through all these zombies. And in post, Jute Ramsey, our editor, is great. We decided that it would be fun to do a little jump cutting there with the music and make this a little montage of these guys, walking through the zombies.
It's gonna work. I can't believe it.
This was one of the most challenging and one of the most enjoyable days on the shoot. And as you guys are going to see coming up, it's going to rain. The sky's going to open up, and it's going to rain, and the guts and everything are going to start to wash off. And we closed down a few blocks of downtown Atlanta, and we had 100 zombies with all this fabulous makeup. And we had giant rain towers, and we had I had a camera. I think that was you, Greg, doing that shot. Mm-hmm. I had a camera on a camera car, and we had lots of different cameras and everything. And when the rain started pouring, we're running down the street with the zombies, and I started to laugh, and I turned to Andy Lincoln. We just started to giggle, and we said, well, we feel like 10-year-old kids, and we're in our backyard playing, and somebody gave us really big toys to play with.
Yeah. Because
you're in a comic book. You're playing in a comic book, and it's hard work, but it's really fun and exciting to be part of something like that.
Well, I'll tell you, visual effects put in all the storm clouds.
Yeah.
Ended up erasing some of the rain towers. The thing is, you have a rain tower that's hooked up to the fire hydrants, and they'll spray water like half a block. But we literally had to cover, 3 city blocks. So we had to make sure that the rain was hitting in the right spot and that it wasn't too sunny, and it's crazy. And
yeah, we had pockets, but this is very realistic for Atlanta. We experienced it ourselves when we were there, that you have complete sunshine, and all of a sudden in one area you've got this huge thunder shower, rain just tumbles down, and the sun's shining a block away, and that's very realistic. And as I said, we experienced it there. The other thing is the people on the roof, when it rained on them. Oh, gross. When it rained on them on the roof, that's done in 2 different places. We did do some rain up on the roof, and then we had a set piece back at the stage where we did some of the coverage with the rain as well.
Oh, there's the rain tower.
It was a great shot.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, was it? No, that was a sign. That was a...
It looked like... Oh, I think that was the one... Oh, that was the crane arm, I thought.
This we did with the real actors and the stunt doubles. And Andy and Steven were not supposed to go... This is stunt guys here, but Andy and Steven were not supposed to go up and all the way over. That's a trick that we just did. But they were so into it. The guys, Andy and Steven, went all the way up to the top of the fence and almost over the other side. So that was a little trick with the actors and the stuntmen. But if I had let these guys go all the way up and over, they probably would have.
Yeah.
This is all handheld, really lots of running. These cameramen were amazing. These camera operators, they did an awesome job because they ran with these cameras all the time. I shot it on 16 mil. I believe, Greg, you guys did a lot of different tests and found that 16 mil was the best with the makeup, and that's why we went, which was great for the handheld style as well.
For a lot of reasons. Even... Frank was concerned that there would be a lot of times when we would be in dark rooms looking out into a bright street, and the digital just blew out. So it made sense for a lot of reasons. And, and then we had a whole bunch of little Canon cameras that we hid around the set so that you could pick up bits and pieces of that.
When they were coming through the fence there, I had about 5 different cameras on that, but we only had a couple of film cameras. So we did mix up with the HD cameras in there once in a while. What was it? I think we had 5Ds in there. I can't remember what they were.
Yeah.
Tell him to get down there and be ready. I'm driving the geeks away. How? I missed that part.
Noise.
Truck coming around the street again.
Stunt guys did a great job. This is Alan D'Antoni, I believe, driving this car. That was a great slide he did. This was a really fun shot. I was really impressed that the camera department were able to get it. I said, I want to be focused on the mirror, and then rack to Andy, and then from Andy back to the mirror, and the timing of it to do it right when the car was coming by and everything was great.
Let's go! Let's go! Hey, you can't leave me here! No fooling, man! Morales! Hey, man!
This whole episode, we wanted to keep up the energy. Like, it's get the feeling it's in real time, and everything is just moving the whole time. And we're on this incredible ride as the clock is ticking, and these people's lives are at risk. And at the same time, you've got the drama of the relationships and everything. This is a great moment here, I think, when that tool bag actually didn't exist. Frank made a change in post, and that tool bag is actually a CG tool bag that was sitting there. We had a different tool bag. So hopefully people are feeling the angst and the anticipation here. And now we're in the second set of doors. And as you were saying, Greg, that you've got the stuntman on the front there because they're about to break through the glass. And this is where Michael Rooker just went nuts. He did an awesome job.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We literally thought he was going to tear that thing off the roof.
Yeah, remember that? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It was actually hard to cut the camera with Michael because he just kept going and going, giving so much to it, and his performance was amazing. And I didn't want to say cut. You just wanted to keep rolling. He's so passionate.
Don't leave! Don't leave!
This is a great location, too. I love that stairwell.
The trick was a lot of those buildings were abandoned, so if we were shooting on the 8th or 10th floor, we had to carry all the gear up to the roof.
That's right, no elevator.
No elevators. And, it's 120 degrees in the stairwell, and you're carrying cameras and dolly track and whatever you need to up top.
I wanted a little bit of humor there that he overshot the road. I don't know if it came across as funny, but it was kind of fun.
Get closer! Get closer! Come on!
Steven is so funny. He just... He came from Chicago and really had done a lot of theater and stage acting, and this was kind of a crash course for him. And we talk a lot about it because he was pre-med like I was. So we're like, hey, how did we end up here?
You were pre-med?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
No wonder you do such great makeup of people missing part of their faces and things.
Gory, gruesome stuff.
This was actually some pretty impressive driving because that's a hard truck to do a slide with. But once again, we wanted to create the feeling that these guys have just moments to get out of there and get away, or they're going to be eaten by the zombies. We'd run out of time here. Actually, we had very, very little time to shoot this, and everything was was handheld, and we're in the back of the truck, and we're here, and this darn door kept breaking, and. Actually, I think, see how it's only halfway up in this shot because the door broke. And we just kept shooting. We'd lost the light, and we had to go. And I don't think anybody really notices.
See, for me, I always notice zombies that were in other scenes that shouldn't be there. There was a couple ADs that I had a dispute with a couple times because... they'd be like, all right, bring that guy up front. I'm like, we can't see him because we already saw him in the alleyway trapped behind the bus. So how would he get out? So there were times when I'm like, dude, get out of here.
Exactly. That shot when we're on the roof looking down at Michael, I would have loved to have had a helicopter or a crane. I just wanted to get the feeling that we were getting higher and higher and leaving him behind. And he was this, tiny man in this big world. So what we did was actually there was these mechanical structures on top of the building, and so we just kept getting higher and higher up on the mechanical structures and stuck a ladder on one, and I think it worked pretty well. It's the poor man's helicopter.
This shot of Andy driving was a pickup that I had to shoot, driving back and forth past the studio, because I think they needed a specific turn for him looking at one direction or something. So
we ran out of light, and I think that I can't remember what happened there, but anyway, yeah, it was
something where I shot it later, and it was just us driving back and forth in front of the studio one day when he was like, wait, what are we shooting today? We had to all pile in the back. Now, that shot right there is a visual effects shot, and we actually, Frank, at one point, we're going to have a zombie walk into that shot.
I know. I was really hoping we were going to be able to do that, but we couldn't. But that was really fun shooting that last shot, actually, with Glenn. And the song here, I was really happy that it's I'm a Man, right? We had a lot of fun in post picking the song for that.
Wow, it's over already?
It was a whirlwind. I can't believe that we shot that in 8 days. I'm looking at it now going, oh my God, how did we do that? Anyway, I guess we need to wrap this up. Thanks so much for listening. That was The Walking Dead Guts, episode 102 with Greg Nicotero and Michelle MacLaren. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thanks, guys.